Al-Salam alaikum. The person in this story is named Faiza. When you hear her story, you'll feel like she paid the price for everyone's mistakes, and Faiza didn't want to pay it alone. And truly, this is one of those stories that proves what you do in this world stays and eventually comes back to you. Faiza, in the full story. In 2013, in the Oseem area of Giza Governorate, that was the time and place of the crime. But to understand the details, we need to go back a few years, specifically before Mustafa and Abir got married and then divorced. Just to clarify, Mustafa and Abir are pseudonyms, but every other name in the story is real. And once you hear the full story with all its twists, you'll understand why we had to change those two names, because we absolutely couldn't reveal their true identities. This story will confuse you with the number of bizarre characters and strange actions. But anyway, let's begin. In 2005, in Oseem, Mustafa lived with his extended family. Almost all of them lived in the same area. He was a handsome young man who worked as a driver, specializing in transporting bricks, stones, and cement. He owned a small truck, which was his main source of income, and quite a good one at that. He was loved by all the contractors, so whenever one had a new job, they always recommended Mustafa. He was extremely close to his father and followed his advice on everything. They lived in a small 4-story house in Oseem. That same year, 2005, Mustafa decided to get married. He chose Abir, a girl from his area. Despite Abir's questionable behavior, she was incredibly clever, in fact. No one could ever catch her doing anything wrong, because she always made sure her mistakes happened far away from the neighborhood. Abir was the one who constantly drew Mustafa's attention, and although he usually listened to his father about everything, this was the one exception. When Mustafa told his father he wanted to marry Abir, his father strongly objected. He didn't even have a clear reason, just a gut feeling. But Mustafa insisted. He believed Abir was the perfect match, an angel sent from heaven. He met her family, who immediately agreed to the marriage. They settled all the wedding arrangements, planning to get married at the beginning of 2006. Mustafa did everything he could to meet the wedding conditions. His biggest problem was that he lacked self-confidence. He was suspicious of everyone and constantly imagined scenarios and stories that only existed in his mind. All Abir cared about was making the marriage work, no matter what. She knew exactly how to control Mustafa's jealousy and doubts. After they got married, Abir gave birth to a daughter named Salsabil, but Mustafa's fears only grew worse. He couldn't trust anyone. He suspected everything and everyone, even when nothing was happening. He kept imagining things and creating stories in his head. Eventually, things spiraled out of control, and Mustafa and Abir got divorced. After the divorce, Mustafa didn't give up. He decided to marry someone else, but this time, a traditional marriage. That's when Faiza entered his life. Faiza was around 35 years old, and she already had a daughter named Mariam. She was divorced as well, and she had always lived in Oseem. Her financial situation wasn't great. She didn't have a steady income, and the only place she owned was a modest apartment in the family building. Her reputation wasn't the best either. Mustafa wasn't very interested in her past. He needed a woman who could stay by his side and help him move on with his life, and Faiza seemed to fit that role. They got married in 2012. From the beginning, the relationship was cold. Faiza wasn't like Abir. She wasn't beautiful or playful. Mustafa didn't feel the same way about her, and he often compared her to his ex-wife. The house became full of problems and shouting every day. Faiza, however, wasn't one to stay silent. She was tough and confrontational, always ready to argue and fight back. At one point, she started telling Mustafa that she was being harassed by men in the neighborhood, and he believed her. The arguments between them escalated. Mustafa felt like he had made another wrong choice. Mustafa began to think about divorcing Faiza, but before that could happen, something changed. Faiza became pregnant. Mustafa's feelings toward her softened a little, and he decided to wait until after the baby was born. Faiza gave birth to a girl named Alia, and although Mustafa was happy for a short while, the problems quickly returned. Eventually, Mustafa made his decision: divorce again. He wanted to get out of this toxic marriage. He felt like he was suffocating. But Faiza wasn't going to let him go easily. After their divorce, she started stalking him, following his every move. She couldn't accept that he had left her. She became obsessed. One day, Mustafa disappeared. Just vanished. His family searched everywhere: hospitals, police stations, relatives. No one knew anything. Faiza was questioned, but she claimed she had no idea where he was. Days passed, then weeks. The police opened a missing person case. Rumors started flying around Oseem, but there was no solid evidence. Until one day, Faiza was caught trying to sell Mustafa's small truck, the same one he used for work. When questioned, she said he had sold it to her before disappearing. The police grew suspicious and began investigating her more seriously. They searched her apartment but found nothing unusual. Still, something didn't feel right. A few days later, Faiza's daughter Mariam came forward. She couldn't take it anymore. She told the police everything she knew. She said that Mustafa had come to visit Faiza, and the two of them argued violently. Then suddenly, he vanished. No one saw him again. The police brought Faiza in for questioning once more. This time, they pressured her hard, and finally, she cracked. She confessed. Faiza admitted that she had killed Mustafa with the help of her cousin Hannah and her son Ahmed. They had all planned it together. She said she was tired of him mistreating her and wanted to get rid of him once and for all. She lured him to her apartment, drugged his drink, and once he passed out, she called Hannah and Ahmed to come over. They carried Mustafa's unconscious body to the bathroom. There, they suffocated him with a plastic bag. Then, they wrapped his body in a carpet. But now came the hardest part: getting rid of the corpse. They waited until late at night. Then they carried the body down the stairs, step by step, carefully. They put it in a large box and loaded it onto Mustafa's own truck. They drove outside the city, looking for a secluded area to dump the body. Eventually, they reached a canal. There, under cover of darkness, they threw the body into the water, hoping it would never be found. But days later, the body floated to the surface. The police identified Mustafa by his clothing and personal items. The murder investigation was now official. Faiza and her accomplices were arrested. During the trial, Faiza showed no emotion. She sat silently as the charges were read. Hannah tried to deny everything, but Faiza's confession and Miriam's testimony sealed their fate. Ahmed also confessed eventually. He said his mother told him that Mustafa was a terrible man and that they had to protect the family. He claimed he was just following her orders. The court sentenced Faiza, Hannah, and Ahmed to death. The entire town of Oseem was shocked. They couldn't believe that Faiza, someone they had seen every day, could commit such a horrifying crime. The story didn't end there. During the investigation, more secrets came to light. It turned out that Faiza had a long history of mental instability. She had been on medication for years but had stopped taking it before the murder. Neighbors said they often heard her shouting alone at night, talking to herself. Others said she was jealous of Abir and couldn't handle the comparison. Some even believed she had been planning the murder long before it happened. Mustafa's family was devastated. His mother couldn't believe her son was gone, killed by someone he once trusted. His daughter Salsabil kept asking where her father was. She didn't understand what had happened. The tragedy left a deep scar on everyone involved. The media picked up the story, and it quickly spread across Egypt. People were horrified by the details, especially the way the body was disposed of. In the end, Faiza's actions destroyed multiple lives, not just Mustafa's, but her own daughters as well. Mariam, the one who spoke the truth, was placed in protective custody. She couldn't return home. Faiza, Hannah, and Ahmed remained in prison, awaiting execution. And Mustafa, a man who simply wanted a peaceful life, became a victim of betrayal, obsession, and madness. a tragic end to a twisted story.